In this class, we'll be using ESRI's ArcGIS Pro software. We're using ArcGIS Pro software because it's the industry-leading software and the software most used by employers. Now, ArcGIS Pro is known as what's called a connected desktop, which means that you install it on your computer, but you really need to be connected to the internet to take full advantage of ArcGIS Pro software. So when you first open the software, you'll see a splash screen like the one shown on the left, and in the upper right-hand corner, where number 1 is, you'll see a sign-in. You'll use your ArcGIS Online credentials that we give you to sign in to the software. Now, the advantage of this is that you can use ArcGIS Pro anywhere. You can use it at home, you can use it in a GIS lab, you can use it at work, and you can use the same credentials to log in to ArcGIS Pro software. The splash screen also includes your recent projects, so you can easily access your recent projects. And if you can't find it in the list, if you look below there, you can see an icon that you click on for Open Another Project. If you're starting a project from scratch, you'll click on one of the blank templates in the middle, including a new blank map, a new catalog if you just want to work with data, or maybe you want to create a 3D scene. So you would use a new geographic global scene or a new projected local scene. The splash screen also includes resources where you can find things like quick start pages, and you can learn about ArcGIS. And you can also access recent projects. Now, when you open the software, you'll see a screen that looks like this in general, that includes views, tabs, ribbons, and panes. And it's important that we use the same syntax to describe the different elements of the software. That way we're on the same page when we're having discussions, and when you are reading the statement of works and the demonstrations, when I say open the map view, you know what that means. And so a view in ArcGIS Pro software is anywhere you view data. And in this case, it happens to be a map view, signified by the number 1. All views have tabs, and you can see just above the number 2, there's a tab for this map view. That allows you to access the views that are hidden behind the view that is currently visible. Now at the top of the page, you'll see our ribbons. Ribbons also include tabs, so you can access ribbons that are behind the current ribbon that is visible. These include buttons that are basically the commands that run the software. Last, we have panes. Panes are where we're going to do something to the data. And for example, the catalog pane is where we work with and manage not just the data for our project, but other elements like maps and layouts. Now let's explore ribbons. Above the ribbons is the quick access toolbar located in the upper left-hand corner of the software. Now, the advantage of the quick access toolbar is that those buttons are always visible. They are never covered. If you look at the ribbons, I can see all of the commands or buttons associated with the map ribbon. But if I click, for example, on the analysis ribbon, I will only be able to see the commands and buttons associated with the analysis ribbon. The quick access toolbar is always visible. And the default functions that are within the quick access toolbar from left to right are new project, open project, save project, undo, and redo. But if you use a button all the time, you can put it up on the quick access toolbar. Now, the ribbons include buttons, and there's 2 types of buttons. There's like number 2, a drop-down button, and also number 7, which is just a button that then runs a command or a process. A drop-down button is where there are different commands that you can run by clicking on the drop-down and selecting that. And a lot of times when you select one of the different commands that are listed under a drop-down button, that becomes the default for that button. There are also ribbon tabs that I mentioned. So if I clicked on the analysis ribbon tab, then it would open up the analysis ribbon. Now, the most confusing part of ribbons, most of it is very intuitive, but the most confusing part is the More Options button. You can see it's that little tiny button located in the lower right-hand corner of what we call the Navigate group. And so the More Options button, the challenge is it's when they couldn't pack everything into that section of the ribbon, then they'll put the additional functionality in the More Options. And so you just have to remember that if it's not there, to go down and click on that More Options. All of the buttons are arranged into groups that have a common function. So for example, from left to right on the map ribbon, there's Clipboard group, Navigate group, and Layer group. And so there are buttons associated with each of those types of things. So in the Layer group, we can change the base map layer, we can add layers, and add graphic layers. Now the tabs that you see that are in gray are what we call core tabs. They are always visible no matter where you are in the software. But occasionally when you click on an element or object, then you get what we refer to as contextual tabs or context sensitive ribbons, and they appear and disappear as needed. In this example right here, the user has selected a layer in the contents pane, and that's activated a context sensitive ribbon. In this case, they've selected a table, and that activated the context sensitive standalone table ribbon. Sometimes when you're looking for a ribbon and you don't see it and you know you need it, look back at what is selected in the software, because you may not have selected the element or object that would activate the context sensitive ribbon that you want. I already mentioned that buttons just run a command or open a pane, for example. And then lastly, if you want to add a button to the quick access toolbar, you just need to right click it and say add to quick access toolbar. Now, I would be pretty conservative in adding anything to the quick access toolbar at first. The tools that I add to the quick access toolbar are the things that I get tired of looking for day in and day out. So after I've used the software or been working on a particular project for a week and I keep having to look or find the same thing, that's when I'll add it to my quick access toolbar. Now, in the previous slide, we can only see the map ribbon, but there are a host of ribbons, and these are the core ribbons that are always accessible in the ArcGIS Pro interface, including the map, insert, analysis, view, imagery, and share. There's a whole host of other context-sensitive ribbons as well that I don't have here, but you will experience as you work with the software. Now, the map ribbon has buttons that allow you, for example, to navigate a map, work with layers, select features and records, add information through inquiry, label the data, and also to work offline. I mentioned before that ArcGIS Pro is a connected desktop. You can actually work offline where you're not connected to the internet. I would caution you from doing that during the semester because occasionally it makes it very hard to get connected back to your account on the internet. But we have had students do that from time to time when they've been out of pocket for several weeks. The insert ribbon includes buttons that allow you to work with the project, including, for example, creating new maps and new layouts and adding a new folder, that allow you to add layer templates. I don't use these too much, but they're basically markup layers if you wanted to mark up a map. And then there's some additional functionality as well. The analysis ribbon is going to be really the heart of what we're going to be working with here in the intermediate GIS class. That's where all the analysis occurs, and we're going to use most of the tools that you see listed on the analysis ribbon. The view ribbon, I don't use that very often. I use the view ribbon when I lose track of something. So for example, I can no longer find the catalog pane or the contents pane, which occasionally they accidentally get turned off. I'll go to the view pane and turn those back on. The edit ribbon allows us to create or modify features or records in our vector layers and or tables. The imagery ribbon includes functions that allow you to work with raster data. In the demonstration, you'll actually utilize the imagery ribbon to georeference an image, and we'll use it a lot more later in the semester when we analyze raster data. The last core ribbon is the share ribbon, and that's where we're working with the project in general, where we want to share it with somebody else. We might want to publish it online or create an Adobe PDF, and we can utilize the tools that are on the share ribbon to do that. ArcGIS Pro panes allow us to do something to our data. For example, the contents pane identified with a 1 in the slide allows you to do something to data that's present in the active map view. In this case, it's the vector analysis map view. And in the contents pane, we find that it lists the pumps, depths, and closest pump feature layers, as well as the ghost map raster layer, and then a count of deaths by street chart. And if we wanted to, for example, turn the pumps on or off, we could uncheck or check the pumps. If we wanted to update the symbology for the depths, we could right-click on the depths and access the symbology pane. Now, the catalog pane that you see on the far right side of your screen, identified with the number 2, allows us to have a Windows File Explorer view of all of the items present in an ArcGIS Pro project within ArcGIS Pro. So you kind of navigate it like Windows File Explorer, but it lists all of the various objects that are present in our ArcGIS Pro project. So for example, the map section lists all the map views. The toolboxes list all the toolboxes that are available to us. The databases list any connected databases, including all of the feature classes, tables, and raster datasets, for example. The layouts list the layouts, styles, and in the folders, we can find any of the files or objects that are present in our project folder, including our source data. Now we run geoprocessing through our geoprocessing panes. In the slide there, you see geoprocessing pane and the geoprocessing history pane identified with a 3 and 4. Geoprocesses are processes that we run on geographic data to create new data or understanding ultimately. And then the geoprocessing history captures all of the geoprocesses that we've run in a single ArcGIS Pro project. The last example of a pane I want to show you is the Create Features pane. And this is where we actually edit the data that exists within our ArcGIS Pro project and our project geodatabase. So in this example right here, I can edit the closest pump line feature class and the pump's point feature class. Now there are a lot of other panes present in the ArcGIS Pro interface, but these are good examples of panes that you'll be seeing almost every day you're working in ArcGIS Pro. Last, we have ArcGIS Pro Views. Views are where you view and interact with the data itself. And in the example that you see right there, the number 1 identifies the catalog view. And if you remember in the previous slide, there's a catalog pane. Catalog pane is like Windows File Explorer. It allows you to interact with all of the objects and files that are in your project. But in the catalog view, we can actually look into a file to understand the contents of it. So in this example right here, I have selected the ghostmap.png, which is a portable network graphic. And then in the metadata view, I can see all of the information about this particular file. I can see a thumbnail of it, tags that represent keywords associated with it for searching, a general summary, as well as a more detailed description of this particular image. I've already mentioned map views as identified with a number 2. That's where we're actually viewing and interacting with the actual map data. Number 3 identifies layout views. Layouts are where you're actually laying out the map to save as an electronic document or print on a printer. In addition to map views, number 4, table views are something we work with all the time. We're trying to look at individual fields and records within a table. And last, another example of a common view that we use in ArcGIS Pro are chart views. Chart views allow us to visualize numeric data. All right, I hope that gives you a good introduction into the ArcGIS Pro interface. You're going to have plenty of opportunities this semester to get familiar with it. So just use this as reference, but don't let it overwhelm you. As you complete the lecture demonstrations and projects, you'll get a lot more proficient with the software. All right, at this point, you should be able to use the analytical process and GIS workflow to solve geospatial problems, including define analysis, which is simply making sense of information to create knowledge. You should be able to list the 4 methods of analyzing information, including cause and effect, compare and contrast, problem solving, and classification. You should be able to list and explain the steps in the analytical process, including question, inform, analyze, decide, and present. And you should be able to classify the GIS workflow according to the analytical process. So question, which is define the problem and document the deliverables. Inform, which is identify and collect data and assimilate and create data. Analyze, which is geoprocess data and perform analysis. Decide, which is interpret the findings and produce deliverables. And present, which is create metadata and present results. Last, in the demonstration, you'll georeference an image using GIS.